So, welcome everyone. Today I will be talking about the themes in William Wordsworth's poem Alice Fell or Poverty. The poem captures the theme of pain and suffering, humanism, and a humble incident of human life. So, let's move forward and talk about the theme of poverty and suffering. So, the theme of suffering and poverty is a significant element in the poem. Throughout the poem, we get to know that there are so many grief and sorrow that Alice Fell expresses in the poem. The cry of the sound reflects the cry for help of Alice Fell, and it is the speaker who sympathizes with her later. So, the continuous sobbing of Alice Fell projects the theme of suffering in the poem, and she herself symbolizes the suffering of the common people. Perhaps her cry for help in the poem can also indicate the cry for help by the common people. So one gets to delve into the poem where Alice Fell is an orphan girl who is poor and her clock has been jammed in a wheel torn into rags. So as far as the summary is concerned, in the poem we get to know that Alice Fell is an orphan girl. She doesn't have any parents and she's also very much poor, and her clock that she has been carrying along with her has been jammed or entangled in a carriage and it has been torn into rags. That means the clock has been damaged. She doesn't have any other clock and it is the potential reason for her crying. So in the poem we get to know that she is crying because her clock has been damaged. The theme of poverty is instituted after the recognition of her past. The cloak symbolized the comfort. So we get to know that the particular theme of poverty is established in the poem after we get to know Alice Fell's past, and that her past is related to her grief and sorrow. We get to know that Alice doesn't have any parents and she is an orphan girl, and eventually she became very much poor and helpless, and that institute the theme of poverty in the poem. So the cloak that she is wearing along with her symbolizes the comfort because it is the only source of material that can give comfort to Alice Fell. So the cloak itself symbolizes the comfort. So the clock also represents the poor condition of Alice Fell and the suffering she endures because of the unfortunate circumstance. And when we talk about the theme of poverty and suffering, it also heightens the romantic sensibility. It means that romantics try to advocate for the common people, and here Wordsworth tries to bring forth the common suffering and grief of the common people, which is the romantic sensibility. So let's talk about another theme, which is humanism. So always remember, when we talk about humanism, it is very much important for the romantics as well. So romanticism is not only about the world of nature, but it's also about humanism and individualism. So romantics institute humanism in their writings because they believe that it is these feelings and emotions in a man that makes human being a human. So when Wordsworth highlights about poetry, that poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings and emotions recollected in tranquility, it means that he is emphasizing or stressing on human emotions and feelings, which is humanism. And when Wordsworth tries to talk about poetry in that specific manner, then he is defending against the attack of Plato. And Plato is a Greek philosopher, ancient Greek philosopher, and he has accused poetry of containing a lot of emotions that weakens man. But Wordsworth highlights that these emotions and feelings are the ones that makes human being a human. So Wordsworth is trying to defend poetry in his poem, and that is humanism. So in the poem, the reception of pain and suffering that the speaker receives generates a sense of romantic humanism in the speaker to sympathize with Alice Fell. So when the speaker perceives the grief and sorrow of Alice Fell, he showed empathy and compassion for her, which indirectly institute humanism in the poem. So her story and her helplessness creates a sense of universal empathy towards her, which the speaker cannot resist. So when we talk about humanism, it is very much universal. So the story of Alice Fell does not only provide empathy and compassion for the speaker, but it also creates a sense of universal feeling for the readers as well. The ones who are going to read the poem will eventually understand the poor condition of Alice Fell, and they will also sympathize with Alice Fell. The speaker aids Alice Fell by taking her to the inn, and he buys her another new clock that institutes a theme of humanity and a sympathy for Alice Fell. So when we talk about humanism, it is all about valuing human emotions and feelings. So here in the poem, the speaker values the pain and sorrow of Alice Fell, and that is humanism as well. And he also helps her by buying a new clock for her at the end of the poem. Let's talk about the theme of humble incident. So Wordsworth have highlighted that his poems give a discourse on humble and simple incidents of human life. So when we talk about the story in the poem, it is also very much an ordinary and humble incident that has taken place. And the poem is a personal documentary sketch from the journal written by Dorothy Wordsworth. So Dorothy Wordsworth is the sister of William Wordsworth, and the poem is actually taken from the journal written by Dorothy Wordsworth, and she cites an incident that happened to Mr. Graham, who encounters poor Alice Fell, whose clock got jammed in the wheel of the carriage. So basically this entire story is based on the real incident, and the speaker that we continuously talk about in the poem is actually Mr. Graham, and he is the one who encountered this poor little girl, Alice Fell. With the help of imagination, he here refers to William Wordsworth. He sketches the event and the situation to depict the condition of poor Alice Fell. So Wordsworth and other romantics as well, they use a lot of imagination in their writing. So after reading the journal of his own sister Dorothy Wordsworth, he has tried to depict the same situation of Alice Fell in the poem. Since the Romanticism started as a movement to connect and write for the common people, Wordsworth has proven his ideals in the poem by depicting the pain and suffering of Alice Fell. So the Romantic movement started to connect and to write for the common people, and it is an agitation because of the impact of French Revolution as well. So he uses the common language to connect with the situation of Alice Fell, and he portrays beautifully the incident of what had happened to her. So the poem beautifully sketches the mysterious sound that the speaker hears, and one can notice that it is Mr. Graham based on the reading of the journal. So when we read the journal of Dorothy Wordsworth, we get to know that the speaker is Mr. Graham, and he is the one who hears the mysterious cry or the noise from the carriage, and the sound that he hears was the cry of Alice Fell. So he hears the sound and tells the post-chaise to stop the carriage. He then hears the noise from behind the carriage, who is a little girl, Alice Fell, crying since her clock is entangled in the wheel. She does not have any other clock, and she is an orphan. She is taken up by the speaker to the nearby inn, and she is given a new clock for her. The next day, Alice wore the new clock with pride, and she was filled with immense joy and happiness. So basically, this is the entire summary or the story that has been narrated in the poem, and we get to know that this entire story is very much ordinary, and it is a common incident that happens or and that can be encountered in everyday life. So this is what Wordsworth also tried to project as a very romantic characteristic in his poem. So thank you so much, and you can all subscribe to my channel, and then we'll move on with another topic later. So thank you all.